Welcome to Plead the Facts, presented by KI Legal. On today's episode, KI Legal co-founder Andreas K. is joined by Mike Vigna, Vice President of Talent at Empowered Hospitality, to discuss on how to attract and hire talent in today's world.
Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here.
Thrilled to be here.
Good, awesome. We're excited to chat. A topic very near and dear to my heart, HR. In the lawyer side, it's called employment law, labor and employment litigation, federal lawsuits, state lawsuits, audits, investigations. I literally built my career doing that. And so, to see companies like Empowered Hospitality, which is your company, which you'll tell us about more now, it's just amazing. It is a solution. And from the lawyer standpoint, accountants were the first professional that we interacted with wage and hour cases. And I always said there's good accountants and bad accountants. The good ones get excited to work with a lawyer when a wage and hour case comes in. And good lawyers get excited to work with the accountant. They don't view each other as competition. Certainly that applies in the world of HR. There's a lot of moving parts in this industry. Absolutely everything about it is complex. And this is definitely no exception. So welcome. Happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Empowered.
So a little bit about me. I've been in the staffing and recruiting business since the 90s. Pre-Monster, everything was paper resumes back then. And so I've seen the business evolve. But one thing I've always noticed, you can't take the people out of the people business. So technology was an enabler, but not the disabler for people that want to go out and help recruit and find people careers and everything. So I found that very interesting along the years. And I've done everything, IT, accounting and finance, legal, warehouse, everything except medical. And then I was lucky enough to fall into hospitality business in 2015 and never looked back.
I love that, lucky enough.
Never look back. It is literally the most fun I've ever had.
The clients are the most fun.
The client, right? I say it's the good kind of crazy.
That's what I say,
right? Because they're interesting, they're eclectic, they're characters in all the endearing ways, and I just hope to retire.
Yeah.
In hospitality.
That's
right?
it.
So
it's amazing.
It's fun, and I always say it's food. Everybody likes food, and you can talk about food.
Yeah. There you go. Client meetings are a lot more fun at a restaurant than another office where you're just kind of very dry. There's a lot of personality. In it, and it's good. It's good that you see that for sure. I know I live and breathe it every single day, so it's good. So tell me about Empowered. What does the company do? Scope? It's much more than just recruiting. Yeah. HR is much more than just discipline, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Everybody forgets about HR as human, right? So the human resources, and we all forget about the human side of it. But look, it was born out of necessity, right? Yeah. So our principal Sarah found out that clients couldn't. A lot of clients weren't in the stage where they can afford full-time HR. Yeah. And so clients that want to get up and going or open up a restaurant needed that support of compliance and tips and handbooks and job descriptions. And where it started as just an idea, it turned out to a full-fledged business, right? Here we are 250 clients later after 5 years. Amazing. And no stopping it. The side I run is the talent side, right? So when people need talent, keep talent, always going, because we know there's turnover in the business, and some of it's normal, some of it doesn't have to be normal. Yeah. But I always say, we're your people company in hospitality. It's all we focus on. If you want to get into business, stay in a business, or in some cases, get out of the business. If you want to go sell your business, you want to make sure everything's tight before you sell, we're that one phone call to make.
Yeah. What's that? What are the 3 R's again? Is it recruit, retain, and there's another one.
Yeah, so there's 3 C's I call it, right? So you have compensation, you have career path, and you have culture.
Oh, reward is the third one.
Yeah. So
recruit, retain, and reward.
There's no shortage of isms out there, as I say, right? You read a book and you're like, this is great, and there's a lot of great data out there and a lot of it. What I found when I joined hospitality, interesting enough, because I was working with big clients like JP Morgan Chase and IT and everything. Back in 2015, I had to explain really what a headhunter was in this business. Now you look at where we are today, everybody knows where we are. They know the value of it. They know the war for talent and everything. So the business evolved and caught up with everything else that's going on out there. Because the old way of staffing was like, I got a friend, I got a neighbor, I got a buddy, I'm going to fill it. But the business grew so dramatically between 2015 and that wonderful day in 2020 that came along and light switched the business. But it was
We're booming still, though. We're
booming.
Still doing the industries. Entrepreneurs, restaurant owners are exceptional people. They're fearless. Doesn't matter how much fire you throw at them. They run into it, literally too.
The scrappers. We're the best scrappers in the world.
They are. But it's interesting what you said about, you came from big companies, and it's great that you come from big companies. I too, before I went out on my own, I worked for a larger firm, and it's important to do that. But what you realize is that, the big companies, even the little ones need a certain scope of what the big companies do, right? So no longer can you just have that one attorney that does everything. Yeah. Things are too complex. The commercial real estate transaction is too complex. Yeah. This HR issue has too many moving parts. Exactly. If this happens, then that happens. So you need, full scope on all of those things. Yeah. And so your first time business or maybe second, third, if it's just one place, a lot of times the old mentality is, I'm not there. I'm just some small corner restaurant or some small this business or that business. I don't need that. You do need it, because one mistake can hurt you so badly. Yeah. And I call them big boy tricks for the little guys, right? Yeah. There's a version of what the big companies do that can apply to you, and you need it. It's not optional. Exactly. Right? HR, marketing, technology, whatever operational aspects, every business needs all of those pieces of the puzzle, and the product or service that you're selling is just one piece of the whole wheel, right? Yeah. So with HR, it's no exception.
Especially when you look at the fundamental. If you're going to build a house, build the best foundation first before you put the house on top. Yeah. So why not, if you're opening up a business, and we only specialize in hospitality because of the nuances of the business and the excitement, that build your house right coming out of the gate.
Think about how many rooms you're going to need in 5 years, right?
Because the worst is to try to redo the foundation after you built the house.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so much easier to build it right and start out right. And so our ideal clients are ones that are just starting out, not open yet, and ready to go, especially for the HR consigliere.
There's no cleanup.
No cleanup.
There's no cleanup.
And the one chance to get it right and drive out there is really, really important.
Isn't it amazing how analogous there are with just different industries, right? You say, like, to rebuild a house, you have so much work in the house. Isn't it better if you just took the lot next to it, which is undeveloped, rather than the demolition, which is going to cost you $50,000? Yeah. It's a lot more work to do, and there's certain things. I've always found this to be one of the hardest part about being a labor and employment lawyer. We do a lot of other things too, is the cleanup, right? And that applies in labor and employment, business litigation, business divorce. You get an operating agreement done the right way from the beginning, you're less likely to have gray areas when a dispute happens that you need to litigate over when you're fighting with your partner. At some point you have a disagreement. Same thing happens with employees. You have labor at restaurants. You have restaurants that are doing things one way. So now they know they need a handbook. They need proper hiring, firing forms. They need proper disciplinary forms. They need proper protocol, and they mean it. It's not just give me a handbook and I'll put it in a drawer and I'll make everybody sign it. Yeah. They genuinely want it. But they do have violations. And so the corrective nature of what's needed raises flags with some of the employees. And so they're scared to do that, right? So how do you fix that part? And really one of the ways to mitigate that problem is to treat your employees right, and they'll be more receptive to, hey, I made a mistake. Yeah. Let's figure this part out, right? They're not going to jump the gun and go hire a lawyer of the many that are looking to sue, restaurants in particular, all day long. They're going to be more cooperative because you're a team. We spoke about client, customer, guest first. That really means employee first, right? Which is why retention and the types of people you hire are important.
If you empower your teams, that will go a long way, right? That's the part about building the culture. I always look at when I talk to clients, and even when it comes to staffing too, right? A lot of people, if we say it's great if a restaurant's just opening up, let us go fix it right before we just start. But it doesn't mean we can't do a health check and go in, and there's no wrong time to fix it. No. But you just can't keep pushing it off, because the world of hurt's going to come your way, of course. And even in talent too, I tell clients, I'm like, most people will call me when something happened. The chef quit, right? Or this, or there's the hole. And that's reactive, right? Yep. And I'll react with the best of them. I'll go find the best talent. We'll do the intake calls and do all this stuff. But let's get in a proactive mode too in talent. Like, you should always be recruiting, because there's attrition in the business. We're never going to fix all of it, right? Just because of the nature of the business. So trying to get my clients to always be thinking about HR and compliance and talent and people. Just always be thinking about your people in all ways. If you do that, your business will thrive.
Yeah, and you're going to have, recruiting is not just kind of like a commodity, just click a button and 10 people will show up for interviews in 2 days, right? I imagine, and I'd like to know more, how the recruitment process is. Hey, building relationships. I'm meeting people here. Tonight we have a big event in the city for nightlife that they're doing in the city. there's people all around, right? And you're building relationships. They may not know it, but you have them on your radar for a potential candidate who you deal with regularly, and there may be something coming up in a few months when this chef leaves or this key employee leaves, or things they're growing and they're going to need more people, and that person might have a good opportunity to be a leader in that new one. It's not, hey, quit now from this client and go to this client, right? It's a cooperative relationship.
It really is, right? Look, we're always networking, we're always building relationships, and I love when a client says, well, that was fast. How'd you find a person so fast? I've been talking to that person for 6 months and just getting to know them and knowing that what they were looking for to make the move, and then your opportunity came along and I thought of them first.
Yeah.
All right, and that's my favorite part. When I'm taking a client and I have this opening, I'm like, already in my brain, I already know.
Yeah.
I already have the person, but I've been building that network for years and years and years to drive out. So I don't have to be reactive. Even though my clients like void reaction, I'm not reacting because I've been building my candidate database.
Yeah. You're a problem solver, right? Yeah. So from ours, lawyers are issue spotters, and then problem solvers that's what you pay us to solve the problem, right? We also have to identify the issues first because they may not know them, but you're a problem solver, so you have to build that consistency where a client comes to you and they know you don't even know that you had that place in mind for the person that you met 6 months ago, but you have enough relationships where when it comes up,
that's it.
You know where to look a lot faster than the next guy, and it's a very competitive market.
My favorite is to be when someone comes along and there is no opening, but I still present the candidate, and they're like, I didn't think I needed a person like this, but after you just introduce them, I really do. Because it's going to get their business to keep growing, right? I'm trying to get people to think of it, get past this Friday, get past next year. Are you thinking 2 or 3 years out about where you want to go? Yeah. And can you hire today for tomorrow?
Yeah.
Not everybody can, right? There's finances and all that stuff, but when you get to that mode, you can hire today for tomorrow. The world's your oyster.
Sure. So how do you, tell me about the work. You get a client, you besides the recruitment, right? Tell me about, some of the things that, maybe let's start with, I guess, what restaurants aren't doing as much as they could in terms of retention and growing within, right? Thinking about what kind of things I could do to make this employee from, a line cook to a sous, or some other kind of growth plan for them. Give me a few examples.
So you look at those 3 C's, right? Career path, compensation, right, and all that stuff. I tell clients what's changed in the market after COVID was people joined companies, not jobs, right? When I was a young man, people would ask, hey, what do you do for a living? Now people ask you, who do you work for?
Yeah.
Google changed that, right? Even IBM and the bigger companies, like, hey, I work for this company. Oh, what do you do for them? So candidates want to join cultures and companies, and then the job skill set becomes second.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to convince my clients do listen, right? But it's trying to tell my clients, like, you've got to, what's the sizzle of why someone would want to leave their job and come to work for you? And it's not the job, it's not the pay, that's all secondary, right? It's about who are they joining as a company? Is it growth? Are they heard great things? Or are they eater articles?
Are they good people?
Are they good people, right? And all that stuff. So that's what's really become more prevalent coming out of COVID, and really all industries, but hospitality is really feeling that. And those who have changed that narrative are winning the war on talent. There's always a war on talent. Pre-COVID, I was as busy as could be, and you still couldn't find enough people, and it was a war, right? We'll never win the war on talent, but you can win the battles.
Sure.
Right? You win one battle at a time, and this battle coming out of it was a light switch, everybody got shut down, and a light switch comes on. So much data, right?
People want fresh
200,000
starts.
people left the business. It doesn't matter, right? That's just the battle we're in today.
There's new people that came in.
Yeah, change the game, right?
Yeah.
Go to battle with different tools.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to educate. Go to battle with different tools. Why would they come for you? Because I have to convince someone to leave their job to come to you, and I want to know what that is too.
Yeah.
Right. So what's the sizzle?
What's wrong with that employer, right?
Exactly.
With the competition, and this is something that I've always hear, and I'm not the type of person to just get angry when you don't have to. Some part is business. People do have a price tag, and not all of them do though. Like, it depends on what else you're doing for them. That's the stuff that'll say, you need to pay me way more for me to make a life change like this to these guys, right?
Yeah.
There's a really good company.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen because it's so competitive and everyone is surviving. It's not strategically bad. They're not trying to put you out of business. No. That probably happens too, right? And there's laws for that. Yeah. But that's a separate podcast. Yeah. But you have to find ways to kind of work together. And then if you do that, there's solutions, right? Yeah. So I had a client who was potentially going to close their restaurant. And I had another client who was doing well, but he had a really bad staffing problem, right? And so it was, well, listen, if this guy closes, this owner is a really good person. He would be really happy to know that he could tell everybody that we're closing on Friday, but on Monday you're going to go work over there, and you're going to make more money, an amazing place, reputable, and I got you.
I got you.
Turnkey.
I got your back.
You're good. And that's how employers are in the hospitality business. They're worried more about their guys, if you will, right, their team, than themselves sometimes.
It is family, right? Even though it's not, but when they're in, especially your back of house audience, that is the tightest machine of family you ever want to see.
Amazing.
Right? And you have to communicate, right? I always say you can never over communicate to your employees. Never. You can never get too much data in front of them, never go dark, because they're never going to assume the best. They're always going to have human nature. You kind of assume, like, maybe the worst. So just communicate what's going on at all times, right? But that's part of the culture, right? And that's the piece. I always say, like, if you don't have those three things, right? You have a great culture, great compensation, and great career path. Not the best of all three, but all three have to be equal, right?
You have to be touching all of those topics.
Exactly. Because if I get paid the most, but it's a horrible culture and I have no career path, I'm not staying.
I don't care.
Right? It's the greatest culture in the world, but I'm getting paid, 40% less. You're not going to keep them, right? So there's no. It's a three-legged stool. You need all legs to survive.
Yeah, you definitely.
And it's okay to focus on one at a time, right? Get one down and get the other one, but also communicate that to your employees. I'm like, hey, we're focusing on this, right? We're catching up on the compensation battle, right? We're fixing the culture, right? We just laid out the career path, but just pick one and run with it, and then let them know when you're going to address the others. They want to know you recognize the concern.
This has to be addressed, right?
Exactly.
With regards to being transparent, I'm a huge believer in that. When I first started doing handbooks, it was exactly what you said, which is proactive. I would get the wage and hour cases, literally just my first day as a lawyer. Uncle's Department of Labor wage and hour sued 100 employees, and I never turned back. But I started getting 1, 2, 3. Every person I knew was getting sued, and here I am with a bunch of cases. And I'm at first year start at the firm at the time, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I have to wait until the same person gets sued again. I'm supposed to be excited that my uncle, my brother, my cousin, my neighbor is getting sued again. This business model is not a good one. I don't like this. Yes, I'm going to do a very good job as I have because I know it, but what can you do to fix it, right? And it's the preventative stuff. So I would find ways to solve some of the three monsters, right? You don't have to fix everything to be better off. You can chip away at pieces of problems, little by little, right?
And, 20% of your problems are 80% of the time suck. Right?
So when you get to the sexual harassment, discrimination, workplace issues like that, and so now you have mandatory training and things of that sort. And I was like, oh my God, what's the cheapest one that I could go and get $10? They just do it, and that's the one. My friend's using it.
Checking the box.
You're missing the point here. Yeah. You put them all in a room. You say, today we're stopping for an hour, and we're all going to do it together, and we're going to talk about it. And you educate them, because what good is it if they don't know what they're supposed to do? And the power of the owner, the managers, expressing how important it is and why these laws were created, rather than saying, this is another thing the government's making us do, you're going to have less complaints. As a lawyer, I know this.
You go to book readings, and when the author reads the book, it sounds amazing, right? Everybody spends all this time making this employee handbook that no one reads. The employees don't read it. Day one, they signed the back page, and Gary, 99% never read a page of it. Make it come to life, right? So have once a month a page in the employee handbook. Let's talk about this. Why did we come up with this? Why is this in place? What can you do about it? What can you recognize? Bring it to life.
Yeah,
you
give
spend
it in
all
context
the time,
with examples.
Exactly, and from the owner or management, bring it to life. It's a game changer. Because in hospitality, we're in it because it's the people. Our brains are about servants and hospitality and engaging in the world. It's not about reading a book, right? And so, but we need it, but bring it to life.
Yeah, bring it to life for sure. I think that really, really helps. And it also empowers your business's name is just more and more perfect for what you guys do. But it does empower the employees. People who might otherwise feel scared to raise a concern, they're not looking to sue, right? They sue when they get completely disregarded, right? But when you speak to them about it and you empower them through education, through knowledge, they understand it. A lot of things happen, one of which is something they thought was wrong and realize now it wasn't. Right, is now a problem that's gone.
Countries go to war because they don't communicate, right? So just communicate with everybody. everybody.
It's amazing.
Before it goes, that little spark, address it right then.
Exactly, and you educate them. You show them the channels, the means of communication. They view their job more professionally, and I think that's kind of a really important point of what you do is the employees were. I grew up. My dad had a diner, right? He came with nothing at 14 and worked. Someone gave him his first job as a dishwasher and then a grillman, and one by one he moved his way up. But you have to. It was always diners where at a certain point it was like, oh, well, your family has a restaurant? Oh, yeah, it's a diner? Okay, what are you doing on Sunday, right? As if that type of a business is not relevant. But these people work so hard, right? Yeah. And so when you treat your employees that same way, because a lot of businesses do, diners and otherwise, they're going to act that way. But when you treat them like professionals, which they are, and you invest in training, you invest in educating them, informing them, making them feel like a team member rather than employees only, right? You're going to get more out of them.
I gotta imagine the retention in diners may be industry leading.
Really?
I would think about it when you go to your favorite diner and who your server was. Probably been there 20 years, 15 years, right?
So my dad has is not here. He was one of the first to pass from COVID. I took over the restaurant, and the whole kitchen is still people that have never worked anywhere other than except that I converted it from a diner into a Greek restaurant, a Greek bistro. And so these people, I brought in people that trained them, changed the menu, kept some good, kept some old, some new. Yeah. The point is you invest in people, and you have the same people that were there for 27, 30 years before he passed are still there, right? Yeah. It's amazing.
It's the bones
super
of the
loyal.
business, right? Yeah, it's
super
amazing,
loyal.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think that a lot of restaurants, as they're going after profit and all this stuff, they forget the human resources. They get for the people and hospitality. Yeah. And if your eye comes off of that, the wheels are going to fall off the bus.
Sure.
Right? So,
COVID, I remember when we shut down a week. A few days before the mandate kicked in, and I remember that my dad had COVID, and so he was home. But you gotta go give the employees their checks. Like he had COVID, he died 6 days later, and he was thinking, go get it. And I remember Citibank had caps on how much you can pay at any given moment. So I had to go to like 6 different Citibanks to go make withdrawals to go pay some employees.
But in his soul, he had to do that.
In his soul, this was driving him crazy.
Exactly.
And
that's the culture piece, right? That's irreplaceable. That culture piece makes a recruiter like me. I can't get in those companies because the culture is so strong. Yeah. Nothing to do with the compensation. The culture is just unbelievable at that point, right?
It's amazing. I've seen it just firsthand, and I'm happy to say more and more restaurants in the generational shift, especially. People that were in the industry for 50 years, let's call it, they're retiring soon. COVID definitely was one of the last straws for them. They just don't have the energy anymore for it. But it was even before that, you had the next generation coming in that wants to sleep at night. They believe fundamentally in all of the things that we're talking about here, and they genuinely wanted to embrace compliance. If I do my job correctly, I have less clients as employees, and it's okay for me, and that's how I've built my whole business here, the firm, having other things that I can do for them, right? But if I do a good job and they actually listen, they have less employment issues. It's just fact. Yeah.
It's the same with us for our outsourcing HR. If we do our job right, we got them. They grew up enough to where they can hire a full-time HR person. I'll find that. I'll put that in, and they go right. Yeah. And then use us as an ad hoc for any questions they may have. If we do our job right, our clients grow up and don't need us for the full-time service. But that's what we're here for. Yeah. To get them started.
Yeah. Right? The slave of the business, where you have to be there. Only the owner can be there. That's not true. Sometimes there's someone who can do the job cheaper than what you cost to do it as an employee. Like the owner getting paid an owner's salary is not commensurate with what they're doing for the business. They could be doing something different, right? But a lot of times the employers don't know enough about their options, right? Which is why it's so important to just have conversations, be curious, speak with you, find out about different models, different team structures, hierarchy, organizational structures, to see, wait a minute, I could get somebody to do my job for $65,000, but if I give them benefits, that's $60,000 less than what it costs me, but I can make my money doing this other thing.
And what's the cost benefit of that? So that's an investment in your business that will protect you for any legalities down the road, but how does that change your culture and your compensation and best practices, right? So these are thinking today's hire for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right, and really driving on that one. What really changed between 2015 and now is, everybody was fighting this $15 an hour. How are we ever going to afford that? We just flew right by us that on COVID.
Yeah.
Right, everybody's 17, 18 starting salaries, right? Because the supply and demand was so off.
Sure.
So now the business is paying, in some ways, leading the growth from hourly wages, right? So we have that.
Right, we're not even
companies
that
are
much
offering benefits, right? Some even 401ks,
Yep.
right? Now you have PTO, so it's become a real business, right?
Yeah.
So it's now turned into an amazing career that you can even start out feeling comfortable and all that. So that's one of the things probably coming out of COVID that really changed.
That's a big one, because you want to be able, you want to get someone a job somewhere. You want them to be able to go home to the significant other of their family and say, here's what's in it for you as a family unit. Here's what it looks like, right? I'm not just some bartender. I'm not just some manager at a single location store. This is a career, and here's what I'm bringing to the table. Right? Things that weren't otherwise available to them.
No.
And again, you're going to get better product, better service.
That's part of the culture. You invest in your team, you
Yeah.
invest in your staff, right? And you're driving all that stuff. And if you present that the right way, remind them that, yes, we offer benefits because we're investing in you. We offer 401ks because we want to invest with you. We want to see you grow with us, with your families, with your future, right? That's the narrative that came out of this that I think will be the game changer out of it, right?
It
Now, in the middle of it, no one ever
the conversation
thought,
a lot,
that
because
changes everything.
they're thinking about security. They're thinking about, for
it's
the
it's
first
no
time they
longer
shut
the
it off.
blue collar vertical it used to be.
Yeah, that's a
Now,
good way of putting it.
really is a career path.
Yeah.
Right? You go like National Restaurant Associates and all that stuff. It's one of the few jobs you can start as a dishwasher like your father and actually own a place
Like my
quicker
father.
than anywhere, right? Think about it.
It's amazing.
Why not? It's an amazing vertical, right? And I always say, look, if you can't dunk a basketball or you're not in a band, own a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really a cool vertical to be in.
Just
It's
do it the right way,
fun.
though.
Do it the right way, right?
Don't go from a band to a restaurant because you like restaurants.
Exactly, right? But it's a sexy vertical
it
right
is.
now, right? Every third show on TV is about food, right? So it's time for food, right? Yeah, you see these layoffs now in .com and everything. No one was crying for us when there was layoffs during the middle of COVID, right? But now it's our time to shine. We're coming up on $1 trillion business now. Right? It's unbelievable.
It was in 2000. I mean, you're talking about $300 million over the last 5-6 years in growth.
Yeah, and now we're knocking on the door. I think it's $997 billion, right, with inflationary costs.
Would have been there already, by the way, minus COVID.
It would have been there anywhere. But we
Yeah.
caught right back up, and now we're going to surpass it. Challenges, yes. Food costs is a challenge. Labor costs are challenges, right? But it's just the battle for today.
I think recovery from COVID is the battle, a big battle for New York. You have businesses that stayed alive somehow, but everyone thought you'd be open in 7 months, and then it was 10 months, and then it was 24 months. It was still recovering. There's still people that my cousin works at a bank in the area, and she says, "Oh, they just announced 3 days a week mandatory." So that's still, if you were relying on breakfast and lunch commuter business, like daytime workers in Tribeca working in the area, that's 2 days out of the week still. That's 40% of your daytime business. That's still gone.
Gone forever, right? Just gone. How do you make up? How do you pivot your way out of that?
And the damage from all the 3-year period now, that the debt that people have accrued so you got to make up for it now. There needs to be a lot of collaboration between the landlords, between lenders, between people need to really dig in and say, do I need to be open 7 days a week? You got to think of the long game, because it's a lot of recovery that's needed.
And look, whatever today's plan is won't be tomorrow's plan, right? It's starting to settle, I feel like, whatever this next new norm is, right? It's today's norm. It's not going forward, and we'll settle on it, but you have to be able to be pliable and be able to pivot with the times right now if you want to survive. Right?
What do you think is the most important, the closest thing? I mean, everything's negotiable, if you will, from both the employer or employee side, but candidates are looking for that's just almost non-negotiable.
I would say it's the candidate experience, right? If you want to talk about, you've spent all the time building your culture, this great compensation, this great career path. If you don't have a good candidate experience during interviewing, the candidate checks out, right? But I always say it's you have the walk on water people, you have the underwater people, and then you have the wet socks, I call it, right? The people who are in the middle, right? Everybody always wants the walk on water people, no matter what market condition. I've seen 2008, Y2K, every vertical, every situation, economic, the top 30% are always in demand, right? And then your wet socks are the ones when it gets a little crazy, and then the bottom third is when it gets really crazy. What's happened? The top 30% always have choices, but now they have way too many choices, and they'll check out sooner during the interviewing process.
Yeah.
So I tell you just spent all this time building this great thing, but your interviewing process hasn't changed.
Yeah.
All right. You don't need to skip a step, but you need to shorten it. Because while you were thinking about bringing them in for an interview, someone else did.
Yeah.
While you were thinking about getting an offer letter out, someone else did.
Yeah.
All right. And this is where I'm trying to educate the clients. You have to move a little quicker now.
And you're competing with different companies.
You're competing with every
office
company,
buildings
right?
now are investing. They're courting restaurants to come. They're building their own restaurant brands, taking a chef from a restaurant and saying, "Hey, I got this floor, the best economics on the planet because you're not their business.
Yeah.
The building just wants their tenants to be happy. So you're competing against a whole new world of people going after the same candidates, and there's quite frankly very difficult for you to compete with them.
Yeah.
They're already set up to do all those things, and the economics are great.
I don't know if I got them interview, they're already in interviewing mode, and the world hears about it, and they're interviewing other places, right? So it is a race. Doesn't have to be hasty, but it's still a race. You got to keep it in mind. Like someone else is going to snag him before you're going to do it. So don't drag your feet on it, because that's today's battle. So you have to go in with today's battle ready to go, and ready to hire, and just really drive it.
What do you think is the positions now in the market, just from what you guys are seeing, most in demand positions with?
Sous chefs, right? Even Pritas, line cooks, right? I won this RFP from Mayor de Blasio's office before all this COVID, open up a culinary school because no one can afford to go to culinary school and spend $40,000 to come out and make $12 an hour, right? So even that was an issue, but sous chefs coming out of it is always going to be the battle, right? Front of house is doing okay. Like we do everything: director of ops, controllers, corporate positions, just broad brush, everything hospitality. But when someone calls me, I need a sous chef. I'm like,
it's hard.
Here we go, right? Yeah. So and it's just game on, right?
So on the supply side, where do you see there's just an abundance of candidates? Nothing.
There's no abundance anywhere.
Nowhere.
There's no abundance of that top 30%.
Yeah.
I think about that abundance that you want has an abundance of opportunities.
Got it.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's no large supply of anything.
But it's not. 30 years of being in staffing and recruiting, every 10 years the pendulum joins about. There's just the right amount of people for jobs. Other than that, it's always one way.
It always switches.
Right? Yeah. It's the people business.
Do you see a lot of people coming from Miami or leaving here and going to Miami? Just other markets.
So a lot did, right? But now a lot want to come back.
Yeah.
I think people went. I read this whole article about Austin, where a lot of people moved to Austin. But Austin now has more traffic problems, and they're not built for it. No mass transit, no everything. So their infrastructure is so people are like, well, I must just go back to the big city that's built for a lot of people.
Sure.
Right? Charleston, I have a place in Charleston. It's like, well, that thing has lost its southern charm.
Yeah.
Because every third person's a New Yorker coming down, and it's just getting too big and too crazy. So people are migrating back, right, to where the opportunity. You were forced to migrate out, right? But now they're migrating back. I do see the switch where I think employers have to think about is where you used to go after the entry level, which meant early career, age-wise. I've seen that shift is going after the baby boomers that don't want to retire, still want to stay engaged and all that stuff.
And restaurants are social; they're great environments.
Exactly, right. So shift your mind on what employees you're looking for.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily the college person for the part-time gigs and everything.
Sure. Yeah. When I was in, we have an office in Miami too, and we when we first started exploring Miami, my partner and I went down there and divide and conquer different meetings. Well, for 2 days, all I did was walk every single block in Wynwood and just went to every single coffee shop, every single restaurant, every single bar, every single one of them during downtimes. And I, with a pen and paper, and said, hey, I drank a lot of coffees. I bought a lot of croissants because then they had to talk to me. And I just say, I'm not looking for business or anything. I'm a restaurant lawyer from New York. We're opening an office. I just want to hear what keeps you up at night and what's your biggest problems with employees. What are the challenges? How's the business? The number one problem that every single one of them said is a lack of employees that are, there's just a lack of them there. And the ones that come, it's so many distractions in Miami where they're just...
engaged employees are tough to find.
And they didn't know there was a lack of trained employees.
Yeah. So
that was another problem.
So what's that battle, right? So then how are you going to decide, so how am I going to bring in people to have the aptitude, attitude, and then train them? Because I'm not getting what I used to. I'm not getting the person that came from the other bakery that's plug and play. Yeah. That's the battle we're in right now. So address the battle we're in
You got to train. You got to
That's
train
it.
from
Gotta
within.
train.
I think is the biggest thing. I say again in my place, you have people that have never left, never did anything other than delivery, never did anything other than dishwashers. Now they're looking at the clock. They've been trained by amazing chefs, and they're capable of it.
Yeah.
People that would otherwise never see the light of day, they were capable of it.
Yeah.
You just have to give people opportunity and then the tools and training to succeed.
It was my light of day. I think this other shift is where a lot of people went to Amazon and Walmart because the restaurants were closed,
Sure.
and they offered benefits and all that stuff. But they're working in a warehouse, not seeing the light of day.
Bored.
A lot of people are coming back to hospitality now because they miss the engagement of people and the craziness in the back of the house and the banter and all that stuff. And now that the business is offering benefits and 401k, they're not missing out, and they're getting all the wins coming back.
Yeah.
So my prediction is you're going to see this ship come back.
Quality of life.
That's
Surprisingly, it's a very tough business, but again, from a happiness standpoint, it's a good environment for many.
You laugh. How many times you laugh in this business? It's a crazy good, right?
It
is the crazy good.
It is. So I guess that's your favorite part of the business. Tell me in closing, your favorite part of the hospitality business.
But my favorite part is even
I can
though
guess the answer, but
is the impact I make on the single restaurant. It's still my favorite, right? I've gotten tens of thousands of people jobs over the years. Me placing the difference maker in the single unit restaurant that keeps them in business, game changer for me.
That's a good one.
I love that. I felt like I made the right impact, not just for the candidate, but for the business owner and for everybody involved. Right? Those nights I usually sleep the best. All right, because I think that's why that's why I was put here, right? Because I like making those differences.
Yeah, you genuinely make a huge difference in that environment because they have no clue. It's very difficult, and so you solve that problem. They didn't even know it was solvable.
Yeah,
and that's the impact.
Exactly. Right. So when I can come and be that hero for everybody involved, it's a great night.
All my clients that have either work with Empowered or have some sort of HR professional in-house in some capacity, they all are calmer. They all have less labor and employment litigation-related issues. They know more because someone is on the regular informing them and dealing with those issues. Yeah. Stress levels are lower. Retention is better. Yeah. I mean, it's such an important piece of the pie that so many people overlook.
We're the unsung heroes, right? No one ever remember for me who I placed when, where over the years, but maybe the chef is great at a restaurant. HR, if things go right, no one ever thanks anybody, right? But when it goes wrong, everybody needs them, right? So it's one of those unsung hero things, but we're okay with that.
Yeah.
We just want to keep someone in business in the right way and give them the ability to build a foundation to grow.
I always, when I first started practicing, especially settling was it's just a matter of how low can you get it for most times because there was so many violations. Yeah. So the right responsible thing to do was to not just drag this out for litigation fees, get this case resolved, and then there's no such thing as winning. It's just always having to pay, right? In that situation, whether it's me or the employees or the plaintiff's lawyer, it was always losing, which is a non-rewarding thing. So when you can get in compliance, and then that same client gets sued again because now they've implemented X, Y, and Z, and the Department of Labor issues, if it's in the investigation, 0 in liability. It's an amazing feeling. Yeah. They didn't have to pay me $1, right? Let's talk about something else, right?
Exactly.
You don't only call me for when you have a problem. You call me to make sure you have less problems in the future.
Exactly.
And if you want me to have the most bullets to work with, you got to account for professionals like you, the right accountant, the right other professionals across the board. Yeah. And then when you come to me, I have a lot of bullets, as I like to call them.
Yeah. Hey, look, we're great steers of the business, I say, right? We might be backseat drivers, but we're still getting people where they need to go to protect them, right? And the owners are always going to drive, but it's our, we're their nav, right? Yeah. We're their nav system in the world.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, this was great. Like every time, everybody I bring in from the hospitality industry is always great guests.
Because we rock.
Good personality.
That's why we're in the business.
We are. I always like to say this. We have a few people in the office too who come from hospitality, and it's just we see things differently, and to kind of bring that all together and not take the fear, the scariness out of being a lawyer, of dealing with a lawyer or an accountant or an HR professional. We're still restaurant people, and so we get their world, and it becomes.
And we're still people. Like I'm one phone call away. If I don't know someone, I'm one hop away knowing someone that can help. It costs you nothing to reach out to me. Literally nothing. It could cost you everything if you don't.
Sure. Yeah, and it definitely. I'd say this openly. There's a lot of things that you shouldn't have a lawyer do. It's much more cost effective to have someone like you come in and do it rather than a lawyer, right? We do a lot of the things that you guys do, but that's not the most cost effective. And
Yeah.
we always say to our clients, the name of the game, you're in business, the name of the game is to keep the most amount of money in your pocket. Whether you spend it on me, a lawyer, the government, it's compliance, and keep the most the most amount of money in your pocket. And it's cost effective to have an HR professional rather than wait to get sued to have to hire a lawyer to address the whole problem.
Long-term view versus short-term.
Yeah,
right?
100%. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure.
Might have to have you again.
Anytime.
Tell Sarah we said hello. She's
absolutely
amazing. I'll
will.
probably see her tonight.
She's built
the event.
an amazing company.
She is. She's a great person.
We're rocking and rolling.
Starts at the top.
That's it.
Right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank
All
you,
right,
everybody.
thank
Hope you enjoyed the session.